talking about unemployment, poverty, food insecurity, armed conflicts are just simply some of the goals that have been scored against Africa by the capitalist West during the game of imperialism. I simply have three intentions as to why I should pass on this message to you. Is that you may understand how the game of imperialism has been planned against Africa. Secondly, you may understand how the game of imperialism is played against Africa. And thirdly, is to inspire and invite Africans to come to this realization that we are playing an unfair game, and so we must plan our way of how to win this game. And those are the three basic reasons as to why I pass on this message to you particularly. It's time for Africa to wake up and then realize that yes, we have been playing against Europe, against the capitalists, against the imperialists, but at the same time, they have been officiating the game. So they have the whistle, they know when to blow, and they know when to score. So it's very, very important that we come to realize this. And sometimes I'm amused when I see political leaders and when I see African presidents boasting of economic development in Africa. Africa has stagnated economically. Because where Africa is not in control of the economic system, we cannot claim that we have become economically independent. And it's the reason is that in Uganda, the prices of the essential commodities are doubling every other day. You see that in South Africa, there's an Africa tax mainly orchestrated by the unemployed youth. The situation is not any better in Zimbabwe. In Kenya, the fuel prices are rising. In Malawi, it's terrible. Only that for them, they have met that their government has not used the state security institutions to orchestrate vengeance and terror and unleash brutality of the highest order, as a number of African presidents have been doing. In a number of African countries, when you express your freedom, they will simply charge you with a treason. But then we need to realize that we must not be detached from the reality of life. Africa is at war. There is a lot of tension, especially when it regards economic provisioning of the people. That's the reason I talk of getting to reclaim our economic system. We talk of an economic system of Africa as being agrarian, mainly depending on agriculture. But even the agriculture that we claim to be depending on, we are not in control of that agriculture. Take a look, currently even the rice production in Zimbabwe is being managed by the Chinese. Then what do we have to control? Because everything is managed by somebody outside Africa. Somebody in America must know when and what to invest in Africa. Somebody in China must know when and what to buy from Uganda, and also how much they should buy it. They determine the prices. Somebody outside Africa must determine when and what to sell to Africans. So we need to come to this realization that we need to control our material provision. Until African countries wake up and they begin to control the economic provisioning of the people, we shall continue to be victims of this economic crisis. So we need to wake up. And sometimes when you're talking of economic development and when you are claiming things that have been built on ideology, it's very, very important to understand the economic system that we talk about. For example, when we are understanding the material provisioning of the people, we must understand it in terms of labor. And let's understand the three key components of labor. And the first one is the labor power. Africans have the labor power. They have the physical energy. They have the intellectual and the psychological capabilities to do work. The African is as intelligent as the American, as the Chinese. That's no question of debate. And so, we need to understand the second component of labor. And those are the objects of labor. The objects of labor are things onto which the labor power is applied. These include land and the raw materials. Do Africans have access to land? Do Africans have access to the raw materials? We know very well that from the time of colonialism, Africans lost charge of their land. And until this present day, foreign investors are given more privileges. They are given a free land when they are investing. They are given tax holidays, and usually after investing and exploiting the resources, when they realize that the tax holiday is soon expiring, you see them exiting the market, and another company comes in, and that has simply become a game. So they are having access to the land and to the raw materials as compared to the native African. Even where you see that the African still has the same opportunity to buy, they have set the market standard for the raw materials so high for the African to purchase. So our governments have always found it better to sell off the raw materials to to foreigners or to American-based companies as compared to selling them off to Africans. So when there is no access to the raw materials, we cannot talk of having the means of production. And the third key component is the instruments of labor. So we have looked at the labor power, the objects of labor, and the instruments of labor. The instruments of labor are the tools with which man makes work. Do Africans have access to the tools? Africans are not having access to the tools with which they can produce. And we are very busy boasting of economic production when we don't have the tools. So how do we devise means to have these tools to use in our production? And this is very, very important. But now we are claiming of having economic development when we can't control the economic system, because those who are having the labor power will end up selling their labor power to those who have the means of production, those who have the land and the raw materials, and those who have the machines. So those who are having the land and who are having the raw materials and who are having the instruments, they will simply buy your labor power as an African. And you either sell off your labor power to them or you die. So unless we begin to control economic provisioning, we shall not talk of economic development. And for this reason, I invite all African leaders, I invite African presidents, that let us devise means of ensuring that African people are having their labor power, which include the physical, the energy, and the intellectual capabilities that they have, but we also create means on how Africans can have access to land and to the raw materials. The third is how to have the instruments. When Africans will be having the labor power, when Africans will be having the land and the raw materials, and Africans also have the instruments, Africans will control their production. They will know when to produce and what to produce and when to sell it. And that's when Africa will have true economic development, without having the ideologies that have been perpetuated only to keep Africa in the stands.